We're going to start standing, shoulders open, feet parallel, toes shooting straight ahead, heels right underneath your hips, hips in neutral, shoulders are open, hands are down by your side, inhale, and then exhale. You're going to nod your head down, roll down through your spine piece by piece, eventually going down through that spine. Doesn't matter how low you go to your low spot. Inhale there at that low position. Let your head relax. Let your shoulders relax. Exhale, rolling back up through that spine. Think about your hips getting right back underneath you, back to that neutral position, and stacking your spine piece by piece on top of the hips. Shoulders open. The head is the last thing to come up. Inhale. And exhale. We're going to do that one more time. Scoop in the abdominals even here. As you're going down, make sure that they're supporting you as you melt down to the floor. Inhale at your low spot, wherever that is. Enjoy the stretch of the legs and the back. And then exhale, rolling back up through that spine, getting those hips underneath you, getting that spine to stack up, opening those shoulders, extending through that spine. All right, coming into position. One trick I use to get into my spot on a mat when I'm by myself is I lay down and I get my hands on either side of the mat, make sure I'm even on that mat, and then I reach for my heels and touch them to see how far away they are from me. I glue my heels together so my hands release down by my side, and then I scoot my feet away from me a little bit and then separate. So that way they're back in that parallel position. From here, what we're going to do is you're going to inhale and you're going to tuck on your exhale. Scooping in the belly button, pressing the low back into the mat, tucking the hips. Inhale. Exhale to go back to neutral. Inhale and exhale, scooping in the abdominals, pulling the belly button into the spine, tucking the hips, and return back to neutral. Inhale and exhale, tucking, and back to neutral. Now every time you go into your tuck, even though your feet are definitely touching the mat, I want you to think about your feet being light on that mat. So you're using your abdominals, you're using your core to go in and out of that tuck. This is to get the spine mobilized and to get the abdominals moving. Exhale as you tuck, and back to neutral. Inhale, and exhale as you tuck, and back to neutral. We can do between 5 to 10 of those is a great number. We're going to go ahead and go on to our 1-inch lift. Think about your feet pulling towards you. Lift up 1 inch off your mat. Inhale. And go ahead and use your exhale to go back down through your spine. Inhale once you get down to neutral. And exhale, rolling back up. Inhale. And exhale, rolling back down. Inhale. And exhale. You're going up 1 inch with your hips. You're initiating with your tuck, holding that tuck, pulling that belly button in as deep as you can, and then you control your spine back down into the mat. Control your hips back down onto the mat. Think that you don't want to release your hips and your spine back down onto the mat, so you're not just plopping them down, you're rolling down through your spine piece by piece to release your spine little by little with control back onto the mat. That really helps the abdominals engage and deepen. One more like that. And again, a great number is between 5 to 10. Make sure your feet are still pulling towards you. Going back down. Your hamstrings should already be engaging quite a bit here. You're engaging, initiating with the abdominals on this tuck. Then we're going to continue our tuck, pulling your feet towards you. You're back into your 1-inch lift. You're going to continue to go through that 1-inch lift to a full bridge position. Your full bridge position, though, make sure your ribs are pulled in, your hips are tucking up, and you are not arching and pushing your spine up. This is going to hurt the back. So don't go into that arch, but instead you're thinking curling your spine up. And inhale, exhale, roll back down. Keep those shoulders open, the neck is long. Inhale. Once you get down to the bottom, into that neutral position, exhale, curling the spine up off that mat piece by piece, all the way up to the high point. Inhale at your high point. And then exhale, sequentially going down through your spine, thinking upper back, mid back, through that low back, down to the hip bones, and then finally you're back into neutral. Inhale. Exhale, rolling back up piece by piece to that spine. Every little bit of the spine, you should feel it peel off one by one through each vertebrae. Little pause at the top. Make sure your knees are still gravitating towards each other in parallel. Exhale to roll back down piece by piece through that spine. Inhale once you get down to your low point. And exhale, rolling back up. This is the last time we're going to add on. Holding your bridge at the top, really tucking, pulling the belly button in. Your right leg is going to come up to tabletop, and you're going to place it back down. Then that left leg is going to come up to tabletop, and you're going to place it back down. Tabletop position is when the knee is in a 90-degree bend, and ideally your shin bone is parallel to the ceiling. You can think parallel to the ceiling, parallel to the floor, whichever cue helps you best. Make sure you're still tucking those hips. You still have that sensation of the belly button pulling in and the pubic bone tucking up to the ceiling. Trying to keep the hips even so that the right hip and the left hip don't drop, but they stay even and lifted with one another. Let's do one more set. Again, for pretty much all these exercises, between 5 to 10 is a good number. Make sure you're still pulling in with the abdominals, still pulling your feet towards you, not letting your feet slide away from you. On this next one, we're going to go up with our right leg into that tabletop position, and you're going to pause. Keep tucking, keep scooping, keep pulling the belly button in. Keep the hips even. Tap the foot, bring it up. Tap the foot, bring it up. You're trying to keep those hips even and that knee in a 90-degree bend. Tap the foot, bring it up. One more. Plant that foot down. Tuck your hips. Make sure they're back into nice even position in case you lost it. Left leg comes up. Tap that foot down. Bring it up. That foot taps down. Hips stay even. Keep that right knee hugging the midline. It's not on the midline, but it's definitely not floating away from the midline. Keep that right foot pulling towards you as your left leg is up in the air. Last set. Go ahead and plant that foot down. Tuck your hips. Make sure they're still even. You're going to go down a little bit, thinking tuck as you go. And then bring your hips right back up. Down a little bit and right back up. So now we're evening things out. You're moving your hip bones together. Your belly button is staying pulled in. Your abdominals are staying engaged. Your feet are pulling towards you. It's very small movement. And every time you lift, you're thinking pull your feet closer. Pull your feet closer. Pull your feet closer. And 3, and 2, and 1. Roll down through your spine piece by piece. Keep your feet pulling towards you. Keep your belly button pulled in. Keep thinking curling your spine even as you reverse through your spine back down onto your mat. Once you're all the way back down in neutral, you're going to take your hands, interlace your hands at the base of your head, right above your neck, where your neck and your head meet. Lift your elbows a little bit off the mat so you've created a hammock. You're going to inhale here, pulling your ribs in so they do not pop out. We don't want them popping out. We want them pulled in. Exhale as you lift your head and your chest. Little pause, making sure your hips do not change. If you need to work with a modification to have better protection for your low back, you tuck your hips and you imprint your low back into the mat. You keep that the whole time. It's just a small tuck to imprint your spine. Otherwise, your hips are in flat, neutral Pilates position, and you lift that head and that chest as high as you can. Inhale and exhale. Inhale, keeping the ribs closed. Exhale. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. So your exhales, when you move, your inhale is at the 2 end points. So you're exhaling, lifting the head and the chest. Inhale, little pause. Exhale, lowering the head and the chest. Inhale, barely touch. Exhale, coming right back up. Inhale and exhale. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking ribs stay in the whole time. I'm also thinking my feet are light the whole time. I'm really trying to get the lift from folding underneath the sternum, not by pulling my head. So I don't want to just pull my head forward and lower it. I want to fold underneath the sternum, lifting my head and my chest. Going back down. We're going to do 2 more. Exhale, lifting. Inhale, exhale. Go up on this one and stay up. Now on these, I want you to get into your rotation, but to get to your rotation, I want you to think less rotation, more lift. You're going to go right and left. You're going to go up to the right and back to center. Up to the left, back to center. Make sure your hip bones are not wiggling back and forth. Hip bones are staying really stable and still because your abdominals are holding them still and stable. One giveaway is if your legs move. If your legs are moving, that means your hips are probably moving. That means your abdominals are not holding them stable. We want the abdominals holding the hips stable and the abdominals lifting and rotating. So we have a lot of core work in our obliques, in our rectus abdominals, and in our transverse abdominals even. Exhale with every rotation. Again, between 5 to 10 of these. This is a great number. I'm going to pause here on my right. I'm going to reach my left hand across my body. My left hand is on the outside of my right thigh. I'm going to do little lifts. I'm thinking up, 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 up. I'm keeping my hand on the outside of my thigh, actually touching my thigh as I lift. My hips, ideally, are still neutral, or I'm working in a small tuck if that's what I chose to do. If that's the modification I chose, you can keep the tuck, or you work in the neutral position. 3, 2, 1, center. Right hand goes across your body on the outside of your left thigh. Exhale, lift, lift, lift. You're trying to keep your hips and your legs still all stable, and you're still thinking lift, not a rotation. Lift, lift. Even though you're on a rotation for sure, you're thinking lift. 2, 1, center, lower down. Pull your ribs in so they're not popping out. Relax your hands by the side. Now that our abdominals are nice and on, we need to keep them on and not release them. So now we're holding them. Again, if you need to work in a little bit of a tuck, you can. Your right leg is going to come up. Your left leg is going to come up. If you need to modify, you can do one leg at a time. Otherwise, use that core to hold you and stabilize you. No strain or stress in the back. Both legs up. You're going to alternate, ideally. Tap that right foot down and bring it back up. Tap that left foot down, bring it back up. You're holding a 90-degree bend in your knee, and you're thinking lower with the thigh bone, lift with the thigh bone. Lower with the thigh bone, lift with the thigh bone. So you're not just bending your knee and unbending your knee. You're not going into flexion and extension at the knee joint. This is flexion and extension at the hip joint. Every time you tap that foot down, you're extending by lowering that thigh bone, and you're going back into a deeper flexion when you bring that thigh bone back up. Keep the neck long, shoulders open. Again, between 5 to 10 of these. One more set. Let's alternate right and then left. You're going to pause at the top. Deepen the belly button, deepen the ribs. Slide your right leg out on an imaginary table. Slide that leg back in. The foot is sliding out on the imaginary table. So the foot doesn't change height. It stays on that imaginary table and just slides out at the same height, slides back in. Slides out, slides back in. A great modification for this one is you make your movement smaller. So in other words, you don't slide out as far. Just little movements. Another modification is when you slide your foot out, instead of going on the same tabletop height, you're going to take that foot up and back in. Up and back in. Up and back in. Keep going. Keep that belly button pulling in. Keep those ribs pulling in. Use the modification you need so that there's no strain in your back. Your back should not feel anything during this. It's all in the core, and your hip flexors, of course, are going to be working. One more set. You're going to pause. You're going to glue those legs together. You're going to straighten the legs straight up to the ceiling and bend. straight up to the ceiling, and bend. Now, as you do this, you're pressing those inner thighs together. Those inner thighs are actively working. Your thigh bones are not moving. It's from the shin bone that's moving up and down, so it's from the knee joint. Thigh bones don't move. And 3, and 2, again, between 5 to 10 of these. One more, you're going to hold at the top. You're going to place your hands down by your side. You're going to tuck your hips, rounding your low back, return to neutral. Tuck and return to neutral. If you are someone who chose to work in a small tuck, you're going small tuck, big tuck, small tuck, big tuck. Imagine your feet are going up an imaginary wall with every tuck. 4, 3, 2, and a 1. Again, between 5 to 10 of those. Hug your knees into your chest. Rest for a moment. A modification for that one as well. You can also have your knees bent instead of straight, or you can keep your feet planted on the mat instead of having the feet off the mat. And so you would just do your tucks like what we did at the very start. All right, moving on. Let's go into our leg circles. Get those hips in that neutral position. Again, you can choose neutral or a little bit of a tuck. Let's go ahead and straighten the left leg on the mat. Take the right leg up to tabletop. We're going to work with the tabletop position to start. That leg is going to go across the body, down and around. Hips stay really still. Hips stay really stable. Across, down and around. Across, down and around. One more set like that. We're going to add on. The goal of doing it with that bent knee first is to decide if that was enough challenge for you. If that was enough challenge, you keep that knee bent and you do the exact same movement. Otherwise, you straighten that leg as straight as you can up to that ceiling. If it won't straighten all the way, that's okay. Try to get it to straighten all the way. Flex that foot. That leg goes across the body. Hips don't move at all. Down and around. Across, down and around. If your hips are moving even a little bit, you make the movement smaller. This is a good movement to have your hands on your hips to help cue yourself and make sure the hips are not moving. One more like that. Pause the top, bend the knee back to that tabletop position. Again, to the other direction. Out, away from the body, down and around. Thinking thigh bone draws the circle. Knee joint is just along for the ride. The movement's happening from the thigh bone. One more like that. Pause the top. Straighten that leg. Flex that foot if you can. Out, down, and around. Out, down, and around. Again, modification is just continuing to work with the bent knee. Make your movement smaller, as small as you need to, keeping the core engaged. Ribs are not popping out. Ribs are pulled in. One more like that. Hug that knee into the chest. Give it a little break. Feel free to wiggle it out back and forth. Let's get that other leg. Straighten the right leg out in the mat. Hips are in neutral or in a small tuck, whichever one you chose to work in. Left leg comes up to tabletop. It goes across the body, down and around. That thigh bone is circling across, down and around. Across, down and around. Across, down and around. Hips are staying really still and stable. Again, if you took your hands away, you can put them back on your hips if you'd like to help cue yourself. Straighten that leg up to the ceiling as straight as it will go. Flex that foot. Otherwise, you just continue to work with the knee bent. But otherwise, you try to straighten it all the way and then continue the movement. Thigh bone goes across the body, down and around. Across, down and around. Hip bones are not moving. Abdominals are holding them still. And a 2. And a 1. Pause at the top. Bend that leg. Other direction. Thigh bone circling around. Shin bone, knee joints along for the ride. You're oiling up that ball and socket joint in your hip. That acetabular joint. 2. 1. Pause at the top. Straighten that leg. Flex that foot. Out, down, and around. out, down, and around. Making the movement as small as you need to. Use the modifications you need to use. The back is not moving. The spine is not moving. Everything's staying really stable. After your last one, hug that knee into the chest. Good. Go ahead and take those legs, put them back into a tabletop position. Glue those legs together. Take your arms out to a T position on your floor. Open those shoulders. Pull in that belly button. Squeeze the thighs together. Right hip bone gets really heavy and the left hip bone starts to come up. The key with this exercise is the knees stay side by side. So it's not a huge twist in the spine. Although you are definitely twisting in that spine, you're still keeping the thigh bones and the knees side by side. Exhale as you twist. Back to center. Inhale as you control the twist out to one side. Exhale as you deepen the abdominals, bringing that twist back to center. Inhale as you twist. Exhale as you come back to center. Keep those inner thighs pressing together. Inhale as you twist. Exhale as you come back to center. Inhale and exhale. Do one more set. Again, a good goal is between 5 to 10 of those. Hug those knees into your chest once you finish the last side, right and left, and you're even. Then we're going to add on here, back into our abdominals, making the movement a little bit more challenging though. So you're going to get yourself up to a seated position. If you need to help yourself by putting the hands down, adjusting, doing whatever you need to do, get all the way up to seated. If you want the bonus challenge, you can come from laying flat on the mat here and lift that head and that chest, reaching the hands forward and lifting the head and the chest all the way up into your seated position. Once you get seated, we're going to adjust a few things by pulling the belly button in and rounding that low back. From there, you're going to inhale. You have that C curve now. Exhale, roll down through that spine, towards that spine. Pause. Your low back is not touching the mat. Inhale and exhale. Bring yourself back up. You're in the C curve. So all during this, you have that C curve happening. It's not hunching from the upper back. You're pulling in from the abdominals to find that C curve. Exhale as you go down to your low point without the low back touching. I'm leaving lots of space here because I'm going to add on. Inhale, exhale, coming up. Inhale, exhale, going down. Think about the inner thighs squeezing together. Unless you have any low back pain, I find that sometimes separating the legs a little bit helps alleviate some low back pain and gives just more space for the curving of the spine. Otherwise, your goal is to keep those inner thighs pressed together actively. Keep using that breath. You're inhaling and then exhaling as you go down. Inhale, exhale as you go up. Inhale, exhale as you go down. Inhale, exhale as you come up. Every time that I go down, I think, tuck the hips, tuck the hips, tuck the hips. Curl the spine, curl the spine, curl the spine. So I'm trying to make a scoop with my abdominals, even as I go low, so that my back does not flatten out. Let's just do 2 more of those. Exhale, going down. Inhale, exhale, coming up. Inhale, exhale, going down. On this next one, you're going to add on by going down to your low back. So lowering down, go down to your low back. You're in your chest lift position. If that was too low for you and you get stuck, then on the next time you come up, just don't go as low. So come all the way up. Inhale. And then exhale, going all the way down, finding your low point. If your low point is without the low back touching, that's fine. Find your low point. Otherwise, you try to get down to the low back. Make the low back your low point. Inhale. Exhale, coming back up. So you find your range of motion. Where is your low point? Inhale and exhale. Keep that curve in the low back by scooping the abdominals up and in. Inhale, and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Do a few more of these. Again, with all of these exercises, between 5 to 10 is a good number to aim for. Especially on this reverse roll down. I like to call it reverse roll down because I get you going from the top of the movement instead of the bottom of the movement. Especially with this reverse roll down, you have to really pull the belly button in as you go down. Don't want to see any flat spines. That's a great exercise, but right now we're trying to work on deep abdominal connection and curving our spine. Let's make this our last one. Once you finish your last one, you're going to come up to the top and you're going to hold at the top. All the way up to the top. Hold, separate your legs, adjust so that your hips are really nicely planted on that mat. Your legs are nice and long and straight. If you can't get your legs straight because of hamstring tightness or low back tightness, you're more than welcome to bend your knees. You can even relax your feet if you need to, and then straighten that spine out. Our goal is to get the spine straight. But this is a great modification. Another great modification during this exercise is you can keep your hands on your legs or on the floor. So if you need that modification, use it. Otherwise, the legs are straight, your arms are straight, your spine is straight. You're going to inhale. The shoulders are away from the ears. That's really key. Exhale. You're going to nod your head down. You're thinking about a string on the top of your head getting pulled forward. That string pulls the top of the head forward. You're pulling the ribs in. You're pulling the belly button in, and you're trying to go down to your low point, wherever that is. Some people's low point is going to be here. Some people's low point is going to be here. Some people's low point is going to be all the way down here. It doesn't matter where your low point is, as long as your low back is not straining. Here we go. Exhale, nod that head. Articulate forward with that spine. Little pause, pulling the belly button in. Exhale to roll back up, stacking the spine piece by piece. Inhale. And exhale. Nodding down through that spine piece by piece. Inhale. And exhale, stacking back up. Inhale. And exhale, going forward. Belly button is constantly pulling in. So even though the string is pulling your head forward, the top of your head forward, your belly button is pulling the opposite direction to support the spine. Stack your spine piece by piece back up. Inhale. Exhale, going down. Inhale. Exhale, stacking back up. Let's just do one more of these. And again, like all the exercises today, between 5 to 10 of these is a good number. After you finish your last one, you're going to relax your arms, relax your legs, place your legs wherever you want to place your legs. So you can use your hands to support you. You're going to stretch over your legs. This is your own stretch. Just like if you were waking up in the morning and you just want to stretch over your legs, you're welcome to do it however you want. Your abdominals should still be on and in, and you're just finding your stretch wherever that is. All right, to finish, we're going to do a roll down. Here we go. So come up to standing however you need to come up to standing. And once you're up to standing, we're going to finish with our roll down. So again, feet are parallel, shoulders are open, hips are in place. You're going to nod your head down, piece by piece, going through your spine, pulling your belly button up and in, stretching down to the floor, pulling the belly button up to the ceiling. Inhale, relaxing the head, relaxing the shoulders, finding your low point wherever that is. Exhale, rolling back up through that spine, piece by piece. Hips stack underneath you. You stack your spine on top of those hips, opening those shoulders, lengthening that head. And you are done. So thanks for joining this fun experiment of filming a class for you guys. And hopefully the sunlight didn't get too weird and the focus didn't get too weird with the camera.